Bob Rewards Club, coming to you today to talk about Malcolm X. I want to remember Malcolm X, and this is for all those people that are not familiar with one of Malcolm X's famous speeches called the Ballot or the Bullet. Okay, it's a very memorable speech. I'm going to be playing that today. And I'm also going to be talking about the racial wealth gap and how it's greater today than it's ever been in American history for people that are ADOS, again, American descendants of slaves. And with all of that, you know, we're going to just kind of remember Malcolm X. This is the last day of Black History for the month of February. And, but, you know, as you know, our history goes on every day of the year. So that's how come, you know, a lot of Black people don't talk a lot about, put emphasis on this whole thing about Black history. So we don't stop being Black just because February is going to be over with, okay? So let's go ahead and get started here. Now, I want to show you my screen here, which I am going to show you a very good website you can go take a look at. The name of this website is called apps.urban.org. And the 9 charts about wealth inequality in America. You know, yesterday I had a conversation with one of my customers. I have another business called saleslearning.org. And one of my customers, he is in the Dallas area. He's a white male. And I do believe he's from Jewish ancestry. He is a first immigrant, or first born immigrant from immigrant parents here in America. And he's been a very successful businessman. And we had a discussion about wealth yesterday, and a lot of white people, they think that there is, you know, a lot of Black people have been successful. Like when they see, you know, because of the imagery of what the media is showing, you know, they see Oprah Winfrey, they see LeBron James. They might, like in Texas and some cities, you know, you have a bigger middle class of Black people. Okay, like Atlanta, like, you know, so we do have a larger class of Black people. However, statistics have still shown that there is an increasingly, a very large wealth gap amongst African Americans. So we all know this. They said the average African American family has about $5 in savings versus $141,000 for the white families. So our wealth and what creates wealth, which is, again, things that we can pass down to our children, and that would be land, money from like a life insurance policy, okay? A large life insurance policy. Money that is saved that we can pass down. Everything that a business can be passed down, okay? So an asset can be passed down. So we're talking about generational wealth. We're not talking about jobs. And so, like I said, I had this discussion yesterday, and I was like, I realized just, you know, and it's nice to know and talk to other cultures. Being pro-Black does not mean that we don't associate and talk to other people that are white or Latino or what have you. And I think that a lot of people are just, who are black are really confused about even what it means to be pro-black. So here, as I was saying, I want to kind of go over some things because I want to show you that what we're talking about is the wealth gap amongst blacks, whites, and whites are not even the top earners now. It's very important that Asians are the top earners of wealth. They have more wealth now than your average white family. Okay? So, one reason for rising wealth inequality is income inequality. Still, on an overall, black families earn less. This is us down here on the bottom. The blue line, the light blue line. Now look at this chart. And this is the chart that Yvette Carnell always shows on her show, Breaking Brown. This chart here is the average family wealth by race, ethnicity, 1963 to 2016. Okay? It says families of color will soon make up a majority of the population, but most continue to fall behind whites in building wealth. In 1963, the average wealth of white families was $121,000 higher than the average wealth of non-white families. By 2016, the average wealth of white families was $919,000, was over $700,000 higher than the average wealth of black families. The average wealth of black families was $140,000. In Hispanic families, it was $192,000. Okay? Now, these are facts. This is a study. Now, I don't know how many people they had in their sample. I don't know any of that. I often talk a lot about sample size and, and how they did their study and who they pulled to pull that sample from. And so a non-biased study would pull a large enough sample, plus it would not, the sample itself can't be biased. So they can't go to a specific high middle class black neighborhood and pull this sample, say like in Dallas, say if they were in Frisco, Texas, okay, these black, that kind of thing. So it has to be non-biased, and the sample has to be fair, and they have to pull from people to talk to all over the United States, okay? But this is according to the data. And so as you can see right here, that in 1963, when they first, started looking, if they look at the income, what black people earned, and what they're earning now. There's a peak here. Right here, this would be 2007. And that was $156,285. Hispanic was $215,534. Now that's right before the recession. And then white, it was 802.50. But if you look here today, we've lost wealth, of course, and we always talk about this. During the Obama years, black wealth decreased. Okay? Black people got hit hard by housing and lost a lot of wealth through housing and real estate. Okay? So, we're not talking about job here. We're talking about what creates wealth. So, in 2016, as you can see, it went down to 139,523. Now, I want to point out something that we don't hear enough people like the Yvette Carnells or Tariq Nasheeds talk about. And that is that we need to talk about what, well, Tariq Nasheed does, but what makes economic wealth? Now, one thing that's different between the Hispanics and the blacks in this country, and I'm going to say ADOS, because I'm not even going to put a lot of the Africans in there, is that they have businesses. And that is why Africans have a higher medium income. Okay? It's because they're not going to go look to work for somebody else. When they come here, they have a hard time even getting a job, some of them. I remember when now it's much easier for them. But when they first start coming here in this country, a lot of them had a hard time finding work. And they're not the only ones. That's how come the Jews stuck together. Okay? It's because they had a hard time, and so they created businesses, and the businesses have paid off for them. They have control of their destiny. You do have more economic freedom, way more, when you own a business. And I want to stress that. And that's what we're about here, is talking about businesses, black-owned businesses. So I just want to stress that out. I mean, that's how come you see a lot of your, Latino-owned businesses. They have their own communities, and their businesses are thriving because they know how to support each other. Let's just keep it real. We don't have enough of this discussion. So I want to keep it real while we're seeing that. While we're seeing a group of people who came in this country who had nothing. Okay? Now, they weren't slaves, though. And America owes us our reparations no matter what. So I'm not even going to go there right now, but I just wanted to point that out on this chart. And I don't think enough people are talking about it. I know Yvette Carnell doesn't talk about it enough. So, you can go take a look at this website. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start out, again, today I want to go over, like I said, I want to remember Malcolm X. And I want you to, if you haven't heard his speech on the ballot or the bullet, you can certainly go find it on YouTube. But, and I will be stopping it in between. So let's go ahead and get started with that.
I used to be the average American driver, paying my auto insurance years without even...
Let's see here. I'm the wrong thing there.
Reverend Clee, brothers and sisters, and friends, and I see some enemies.
This is in 1964. April 12th, 1964.
In fact, I think we'd be fooling ourselves if we had an audience this large and didn't realize that there were some enemies present. This afternoon, we want to talk about the ballot or the bullet. The ballot or the bullet explains itself. But before we get into it, since this is the year of the ballot or the bullet, I would like to clarify some things that refer to me personally concerning my own personal position. I'm still a Muslim. That is, my religion is still Islam.
I think this is one of his legendary speeches.
I still credit Mr. Muhammad for what I know and what I am. He's the one who opened my eyes. At present, I'm the minister of the newly founded Muslim Mosque Incorporated, which has its offices in the Teresa Hotel, right in the heart of Harlem. That's the Black Belt in New York City. And when we realized that Adam Clayton Powell is a Christian minister. He has Abyssinia Baptist Church, but at the same time, he's more famous for his political struggling. And Dr. King is a Christian minister from Atlanta, Georgia, but he's become more famous for being involved in the civil rights struggle. There's another in New York, Reverend Anderson. I don't know if you've heard of him out here. He's a Christian minister from Brooklyn, but has become famous for his fight against the segregated school system in Brooklyn. Reverend Cleave, right here, is a Christian minister here in Detroit. He's the head of the Freedom Now Party. All of these are Christian ministers. All of these are Christian ministers, but they don't come to us as Christian ministers. They come to us as fighters in some other category. I'm a Muslim minister. The same as they are Christian ministers, I'm a Muslim minister. And I don't believe in fighting today in any one front, but on all fronts.
That's right.
In fact, I'm a black nationalist freedom fighter.
Black nationalist freedom fighter. That's what he said he was, a black nationalist freedom fighter. What he's talking about and what he's going to go into a little bit about in the beginning of this is because what he's trying to do is say is that we need to unite and we don't need to be divided on religion. And I've already made a few videos talking about religion and how it has divided us. Okay, and it's not the only thing that's divided us, but it plays a major role in our lives, which keeps us divided. And I'm saying not just Muslims, Christianity. I mean, it divides us in our ideologies and makes us be more judgmental of other people that look like us. Okay, so that is what that is what he's getting ready to get into. So let's go ahead and.
But if we keep our religion at home, keep our religion in the closet, keep our religion between ourselves and our God, but when we come out here, we have a fight that's common to all of us against an enemy who is common to all of us. The political philosophy of black nationalism only means that the black man should control the politics and the politicians in his own community. The time when white people can come in our community and get us to vote for them so that they can be our political leaders and tell us what to do and what not to do is long gone.
All right, listen. Where do we see what's happening right now in our community? The same thing that was going on back in the 1960s and 1950s. Okay? The same thing is going on right now where you have politicians on the Democratic Party that we're seeing pandering to black people for votes. We can't allow any more pandering to go on. Okay? The pandering has to stop. And that's how come we're talking about tangibles. But this movement of getting tangibles is not new, as I'm telling you. So we have Malcolm X talking about this back in 1964. Again, this is the ballot or the bullet, by a legendary speech by Malcolm X.
By the same token, the time when that same white man, knowing that your eyes are too far open, can send another Negro into the community, give you a meal of support in him so he can use him to lead us astray, those days are long gone. The political philosophy of black nationalism only means that if you and I are going to live in a black community, and that's where we're going to live, because as soon as you move into one of their, as soon as you move out of the black community into their community, it's mixed for a period of time, but they're gone, and you're right there all by yourself.
What he said there is so true. Listen, this is 1964. We are still seeing this today happen. Okay? Now, you have more integrated neighborhoods than they were back then. But I know for a fact, I used to live in a suburb of Minnesota called Burnsville. Okay? And now Burnsville is much more mixed than what it ever has been before. But there's still more white people than there is other groups of people. Okay? So, my point is, when I moved in, the lady below in a townhome that I moved into, she moved out like about a couple months after that. So, I have witnessed this first-handedly. And it ain't been that long ago. It's been a while, but it ain't been that long ago. And my point that I'm trying to make is that a lot of them don't want to live next to you. And a lot of people still us black people still feel we need to be accepted by moving out of our communities, which has caused a lot of the gentrification. Because we don't have our middle class anymore that are in our communities, and they have moved. We're seeing much more poorer people in our black. I'm not saying white, I'm saying black. Because you do have now this big thing with gentrification. Okay, people that are younger coming back to want to live in the cities. But amongst your black middle class, what we have seen for the past 20 to 30 years is a lot of black people who have moved out of their communities, and especially those that could have helped to create wealth in their black communities. And that would be in the form of having a business where you're employing other black people. That would be in the form of you owning real estate. A lot of black people forgot about the real estate that their parents once had in their black community. And that's crazy to me. It's totally insane. Okay? So, I just wanted to point that out here.
We must understand the politics of our community. And we must know what politics is supposed to produce. We must know what politics play in our lives. And until we become politically mature, we will always be misled, led astray, or deceived or maneuvered into supporting someone politically who doesn't have the good of our community at heart. So the political philosophy of black nationalism only means that we will have to carry on a political program of re-education to open our people's eyes, make us become more politically conscious, politically mature. And then we will, whenever we get ready to cast our ballot, that ballot will be cast for a man of the community who has the good of the community at heart.
That's what we're talking about today.
The economic philosophy of black nationalism only means that we should own and operate and control the economy of our community. You would never you can't open up a black store in a white community. White man won't even patronize it. And he's not wrong. He got sense enough to look out for himself. And you don't have sense enough to look out for yourself.
Very powerful. Very powerful. Now, it's very important that you know that Malcolm X, at the time, him and Martin Luther King, even though you see a picture here of him, shaking Martin Luther King's hand, they had opposing views about how to get things done. Now, later on in life, as you know, Martin Luther King, he did have a change of thought, okay? And he talked more about economics. But everything, you know, with the civil rights, most of that has to do with integration. Black nationalism doesn't focus on integration. It focuses on us economically becoming sound, doing business with one another, what we're talking about, what we need now. There's nothing wrong with black nationalism. And somehow some black people think in the back of their head that there's something wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with black nationalism. You've been taught to patronize outside of your community, and now your communities are suffering, my black people, who think that there's something wrong with black nationalism. Even Trump, and I did a video on that about a couple months ago, talking about Trump, and he even said that he was a nationalist. He might as well have just put the word white right in front of it. But because he's a politician, he couldn't. We know what he meant when he said nationalism. And if you don't know what he meant, you want to twist it all up in your head because you don't want to believe in being pro-black. You want to believe that something's wrong with being pro-black. And there's nothing wrong with having black nationalism and being black first and thinking about your black people first. And anybody who's black says that there's something wrong with that, there's something wrong with you that has made you become detached from your own community. I'm just keeping it real here. I get passionate because I'm a very passionate person. Very passionate.
And the white man is too intelligent to let someone else come and gain control of the economy of his community. But you will let anybody come in and control the economy of your community. Control the housing, control the education, control the jobs, control the businesses under the pretext that you want to integrate. No, you're out of your mind. The economic philosophy of black nationalism only means that we have to become involved in a program of re-education to educate our people into the importance of knowing that when you spend your dollar out of the community in which you live, the community in which you spend your money becomes richer and richer. The community out of which you take your money becomes poorer and poorer. And because these Negroes who have been misled, misguided, are breaking their necks to take their money and spend it with the man. The man is becoming richer and richer, and you're becoming poorer and poorer. And then what happens? The community in which you live becomes a slum. It becomes a ghetto. The conditions become run down. And then you have the audacity to complain about poor housing and a run-down community. While you run it down yourself.
That's right. Remember, this is 1964. And we are in 2019, and we have seen what has happened. You go to parts, I went to, oh man, there's still parts, a lot of America, and I'm not talking to you people that are in Dallas. But there's a black ghetto everywhere, as we know, okay? But I'm not talking to you people that are in those parts of America that we can see the black middle class, that black middle class, and some black people who have become prosperous. Even though you see conspicuous consumption, does not mean that you see wealth. And that's very important that you people understand that. Because as I said, I had a discussion yesterday with one of my previous white customers, okay? And he thought just because his neighbors, they're black and they have a Bentley, that doesn't mean that they've got thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in their bank account. I know plenty of black people who are riding around looking good, who got very expensive house payments. I know lots of black people, but when it comes to their bank account, look at here, we just saw R. Kelly couldn't even come up with $100,000 to bail himself out of jail. And he supposedly had made $243 million in his lifetime. In his lifetime, my brothers and my sisters. And he couldn't come up with $100,000 bail. See, it's not about conspicuous consumption. It's about what do you have in your bank account? What are you going to pass down to your next generation? What really brings wealth? What type of business do you own and you operate that's going to be viable from when you pass away? What can you leave that really brings generational wealth to your family, to your community?
And you and I are in a double track, because not only do we lose by taking our money someplace else and spending it, when we try and spend it in our own community, we're trapped because we haven't had sense enough to set up stores and control the businesses of our community. The man who's controlling the stores in our community is a man who doesn't look like we do. He's a man who doesn't even live in the community. So you and I, even when we try and spend our money in the block where we live or the area where we live, we're spending it with a man who, when the sun goes down, takes that basket full of money in another part of the town. So we're trapped, double trapped, triple trapped. Anywhere we go, we find we're trapped. And every kind of solution that someone comes up with is just another trap. But the political and economic philosophy of black nationalism, the economic philosophy of black nationalism shows our people the importance of setting up these little stores and developing them and expanding them into larger operations. Woolworth didn't start out big like they are today. They started out with a dime store. And expanded and expanded and expanded until today they're all over the country and all over the world, and they're getting some of everybody's money. Now this is what you and I, General Motors, the same way they started out like this. It started out just a little rat race type operation.
I do want to point out this is 1964. Okay? These Woolworths and General Motors at that time were very, very viable companies. Now Woolworths is no longer, but they've taken that money and that wealth and they morphed into, other businesses. They made a lot of money over the years. That was your first dollar store, Woolworths, the dime store. Okay? I used to love Woolworths when I was a little kid. And that's how old I am. And as we see, General Motors has had issues. Okay? So, but they've lost their wealth due to a lot of different things. They didn't lose their wealth. I'm sorry. They lost, their businesses have declined due to other things. Like with General Motors, they cannot continue to compete because of all the, look at the type of cars that they put out. They lost that on their own. That's bad management. We see what a lot of these white companies, these corporations that have suffered over the past 20 years have been because of mismanagement on a broader scope. Okay, but that's for another, and I digress.
And it expanded until today is where it is right now. And you and I have to make a stop. And the best place to start is right in the community where we live. So our people not only have to be...
Okay, so now he's going to start talking about now our people have to be educated, re-educated, okay? And because what you have learned, and like I said, This is an old speech. So somehow a lot of us were not paying attention to Malcolm X in these last 30, 40 years. Okay? A lot of us have really become not on code and just leaving, like he's talked about, leaving your community.
When I go into business, we own and operate at least the businesses in our community. What we'll be doing is developing a situation wherein we will actually be able to create employment for the people in the community. And once you can create some employment in the community where you live, it will eliminate the necessity of you and me having to act ignorantly and disgracefully, boycotting and picketing some cracker someplace else, trying to gang you for a job. Anytime you have to rely upon your enemy for a job, you're in bad shape. When he is your enemy, and you wouldn't be in this country if some enemy hadn't kidnapped you and brought you here. On the other hand, some of you think you came here on the Mayflower.
I'm joking around. He's a good speaker.
So as you can see, brothers and sisters, today, this afternoon, it's not our intention to discuss religion. We're going to forget religion. If we bring up religion, we'll be in an argument. And the best way to keep away from arguments and differences, as I said earlier, put your religion at home, in the closet. Keep it between you and your God. Because if it hasn't done anything more for you than it has, you need to forget it anyway. Whether you are a Christian or a Muslim or a nationalist, we all have the same problem. Yes. They don't hang you because you're a Baptist, they hang you because you're black.
Because you're black.
They don't attack me because I'm a Muslim, they attack me because I'm black. Right. They attack all of us for the same reason. All of us catch hell from the same enemy. We're all in the same bag, in the same boat. We suffer political oppression, economic exploitation, and social degradation. All of them from the same enemy. The government has failed us. You can't deny that. Anytime you were living in the 20th century, 1964, and you walk around here singing, "We shall overcome," the government has failed.
Now remember, he opposed the views of Martin Luther King with holding the hand, singing, "We shall overcome." Okay? And this is some real truths here. Where have we seen where civil rights has gotten us? Except integration. Because you have still in America, you have in America right now where African American women, black women, still learn at less than a white male who is 18 years old, who doesn't even have a college degree. And we see that African American women are the largest college graduates. It has nothing about education, and I hate to say that because I'm an educated woman myself who has a post degree. Okay? It's not about education, it's about economics, and it's about wealth and acquiring the wealth. Now, Dr. Boyce talks a lot about stock markets, and a lot of black people do. I'm not a stock market person. I am a person who's traditional, who thinks that it's about land and about saving. Okay? And a lot of us don't do enough of that because a lot of us don't have anything to say. But you have a few dollars to put aside if you need to. A lot of us have a lot of things with the conspicuous consumption that, we don't. We don't save like we should.
This is part of what's wrong with you. You do too much singing. Today is time to stop singing and start swinging. You can't sing up on green, but you can swing up on some green. Cassius Clay can sing.
Muhammad Ali.
Didn't help him to
Cassius
become the
Clay.
heavyweight champion of the world. Swinging helped him.
History is important. History is
The
very
government
important.
itself has failed us. And the white liberals, who have been posing as our friends, have failed us. And once we see that all these other sources to which we turn have failed, we stop turning to them and turn to ourselves. We need a self-help program, a do-it-yourself philosophy, a do-it-right-now philosophy. It's already too late philosophy. This is what you and I need to get with. And the only way we're going to solve our problem is with a self-help program. Before we can get a self-help program started, we have to have a self-help philosophy. Black nationalism is a self-help philosophy. What's so good about it is you can stay right in the church where you are and still take black nationalism as your philosophy. You can stay in any kind of civic organization that you belong to and still take black nationalism as your philosophy. You can be an atheist and still take black nationalism as your philosophy. This is a philosophy that eliminates the necessity for division and argument. Because if you're black, you should be thinking black. And if you're black and you're not thinking black at this late date, well, I'm sorry for you. Once you change your philosophy, you change your thought pattern. Once you change your thought pattern, you change your attitude. Once you change your attitude, it changes your behavior pattern. And then you go on into some action. That as long as you got a sit-down philosophy, you have a sit-down thought pattern. And as long as you think that old sit-down thought, you'll be in some kind of sit-down action. They'll have you sitting in everywhere. It's not so good to refer to what you're going to do as a sit-in. Then right there, castration. Right there, it brings you down. What goes with it? Think of the image of someone sitting. An old woman can sit. An old man can sit. A chump can sit. A coward can sit. Anything can sit. Well, you and I have been sitting long enough, and it's time today for us to start doing some standing. And some fighting to back it up. When we look at other parts of this earth upon which we live, we find that black, brown, red, and yellow people in Africa and Asia are getting their independence. They're not getting it by singing, "We shall overcome." No, they're getting it through nationalism. It is nationalism that brought about the independence of the people in Asia. Every nation in Asia gained its independence through the philosophy of nationalism. Every nation on the African continent that has gotten its independence brought it about through the philosophy of nationalism. And it will take black nationalism that to bring about the freedom of 22 million Afro-Americans here in this country where we have suffered colonialism for the past 400 years.
Okay, so let's bring this up to date now. He said Asians and Africans have gained their independence and their wealth by nationalism. And we see that. Who is the number one ethnic racial group earner in this country? It's Asians, and it's because of their businesses. Okay? It's not because that they wanted to go get a job working for somebody else. Now, not all of us can start a business, but the ones that can, we definitely can employ those that don't want to, where we're keeping that dollar in our community. That's what he's talking about here. That is exactly what he's talking about. Now, of course, now it's not 22 million blacks. We're talking about 37. Take away all of the first immigrants or the people that are immigrants in this country, that drops down to about 35. 35 million black people are 354 people in this country. And it would have been a lot more if we didn't have the largest outside of white women getting abortions since Margaret Sanger and her Planned Parenthood. Okay, and that's another discussion. But per capita, black women have the highest rate of abortion per capita than any other group. So, we talk about now today we have 35 million, or if you want to, let's say 35 million, okay, versus 22. And we're talking about now 464 years versus 400 years. So that's something to keep in mind, that, hey, we have not increased our wealth since the Reconstruction period of this country. Our wealth and what we own in this country is still what it was. All these years have hurt us as a people. And I'm so glad that some of us are waking up, but there need to be a lot more. There needs to be a lot more emphasis on black people. Everybody running around here trying to act like they're not black or whatever. Okay, if you look black and you want to act like you're not a part of the black ethnic group, there's something wrong with that. And you can't be two-faced on it. You can't be. Now, you might not have as much passion as I do, or even feel afraid to talk about it. You can't be scared. You can't be scared to be black. You got to be proud for who and what you are. As Dr. Claude Anderson says, we are exceptional people. And a lot of us, with the imagery that we see in the media, makes you feel so bad inside about who you are.
America is just as much a colonial power as England ever was. America is just as much a colonial power as France ever was. In fact, America is more so a colonial power than they, because she's a hypocritical colonial power behind it. What do you call second-class citizenship? Why, that's colonization. Second-class citizenship is nothing but 20th century slavery. How are you going to tell me you're a second-class citizen? They don't have second-class citizenship in any other government on this earth. They just have slaves and people who are free. Well, this country is a hypocrite. They try and make you think they set you free by calling you a second-class citizen. No, you're nothing but a 20th century slave.
And I want to point something else out about that colonization thing. A lot of people, the African, Pan-Africanists, okay, the Africans from the diaspora, and the people who are ADOS, American descendants of slaves. We're not dividing, we're all black. But for the purpose of us getting our reparations, ADOS is important. You guys been colonized too. You have to take that up with France. You have to take that up with Portugal. You have to take that up with Spain. You got to take that up with the Caribbean. You got to take that up in your country. The British. Okay? The British. And there has been movements towards that. If you go do some research, you will find that it's been taken up. So don't get mad at people who are ADOS wanting to fight, because it's not about separating who we are. We are all African. We're saying for the purpose of us getting reparations and who could be and how it can be measurable and how it can be allocated, ADOS is very essential. The whole ADOS movement is very essential. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. So, and as I see, like, we're listening here to a speech from 1964, people. We're listening to a speech that is so relevant today, and it's 2019.
Just as it took nationalism to remove colonialism from Asia and Africa, it'll take black nationalism today to remove colonialism from the backs and the minds of the 22 million Afro-Americans here in this country. And 1964 looks like it might be the year of the ballot or the bullet. Why does it look like it might be the year of the ballot or the bullet? Because Negroes have listened to the trickery and the lies and the false promises of the white man now for too long. And they're fed up. They become disenchanted. They become disillusioned. They become dissatisfied. And all of this has built up frustration in the black community that makes the black community throughout America today more explosive than all of the atomic bombs the Russians can ever invent. Whenever you got a racial powder keg sitting in your lap, you're in more trouble than if you had an atomic powder keg sitting in your lap. When a racial powder keg goes off, it doesn't care who it knocks out the way. Understand this, it's dangerous. And in 1964, this seems to be the year. Because what can the white man use now to fool us? After he put down that march on Washington, and you see all through that now, he tricked you, had you marching down to Washington. Yes, had you marching back and forth between the feet of a dead man named Lincoln and another dead man named George Washington, saying we shall over.
Okay, now let's talk about this. Well, I love this speech. Oh, I just love it. The Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964. I mean, within months of Malcolm giving this speech. That's how many people were supporting Malcolm at that time. So for all you people that think that being pro-black, there's something wrong with it, this movement of ADOS and this reparations movement is so important for everybody to come aboard and to start speaking up to say, hey, I want my reparations. Okay? Because we have here the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see. Actually, I'm going to go back here. But the 1964 Civil Rights Act, okay, it was passed in July 2nd, 1964. Okay? I want to point out to you how important Black nationalism is. For all those people who don't think Black nationalism is important, I want you to just think about that in your head, about when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed. And the speech that Malcolm X gave. This was April 12th, he gave his speech. The Civil Rights Act was passed on July 2nd of 1964, within months. So I just wanted to point that out to you all, that our movements are very important. It's very important that we speak about this. Okay? Very important. All right, I'm going to continue on.
He made a chump out of him. He made a fool out of him. He made you think you were going somewhere and you ended up going nowhere but between Lincoln and Washington. So today our people are disillusioned. They become disenchanted. They become dissatisfied. And in their frustrations they want action. So you see this young...
And that on August 28, 1963 is when Martin Luther King, that's what he's referring to, talking about, gave that speech, I Have a Dream. Okay? The famous I Have a Dream speech. That was on August 28, 1963. And this is April 12, 1964, when he gave the speech. So people were disillusioned. Like he said, they were disillusioned, thinking that they were going to get something. All right? And it finally did come after there was more uprising and more upheaval. So when we talk about our Black history and civil rights, oftentimes people forget to talk about what Malcolm X and how he contributed greatly to the civil rights. Everything and all the credit is often given to Martin Luther King. Okay? And it's the Black nationalism that he promoted at that time. And I'm not talking about what's going on with the Nation of Islam now. That's a whole other discussion. Okay? I'm talking about back at that time.
Black man, this new generation, asking for the book Ballot or the book. That old Uncle Tom action is outdated. The young generation don't want to hear anything about the odds are against us. What do we care about odds? When this country here was first being founded, there were 13 colonies. The whites were colonized. They were fed up with this taxation without representation. So some of them stood up and said, liberty or death. Though I went to a white school over here in Mason, Michigan, the white man made the mistake of letting me read his history books. He made the mistake of teaching me that Patrick Henry was a patriot, and George Washington wasn't nothing non-violent about old Pat or George Washington. Liberty or death was what brought about the freedom of whites in this country from the English.
And they're still like that today. Liberty or death.
They didn't care about the
It's nothing different.
But they faced the wrath of the entire British Empire. And in those days they used to say that the British Empire was so vast and so powerful when the sun would never set on it. This is how big it was. Yet these 13 little scrawny states, tired of taxation without representation, tired of being exploited and oppressed and degraded, told that big British Empire, liberty or death. And here you have 22 million Afro-Americans, black people today, catching more hell than Patrick Henry ever saw.
Yes, sir.
And I'm here to tell you, in case you don't know, that you got a new generation of black people in this country who don't care anything whatsoever about ours. They don't want to hear you old Uncle Tom handkerchief heads talking about This is a new generation. If they're going to drag these young black men and send them over to Korea or South Vietnam to face 800 million Chinese. If you're not afraid of those odds, you shouldn't be afraid of these odds. Why does this loom to be such an explosive political year? Because this is the year of politics. This is the year when all of the white politicians are going to come into the Negro community. You never see them until elections time. You can't find them until elections time. They're going to come in with false promises. And as they make these false promises, they're going to feed our frustrations. And this will only serve to make matters worse.
And what are we seeing already with the Democrats, y'all? Okay, we're seeing all these people: Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders. All these people, Nancy Pelosi. Okay, we're gonna see everybody come at us, saying they're going to offer you this. And now it's got to be about, seriously, it's got to be about tangibles. It's got to be about breaking that wealth gap. It has to be about us getting our reparations for labor that was already given. Okay? Our ancestors already did the labor. We already did the work to make what America is today. Now, despite we have people in their community that have mismanaged because they can't budget, like Queen Elizabeth said, what happened when we had that crisis? What happened? All you people go to school, you get all these advanced degrees, but you can't manage money, and you can't foresee or forecast things that are going to happen. So, I digress again.
I'm no politician. I'm not even a student of politics. I'm not a Republican, nor a Democrat, nor an American, and got sense enough to know. I'm one of the 22 million black victims of the Democrats. One of the 22 million black victims of the Republicans, and one of the 22 million black victims of Americanism. And when I speak, I don't speak as a Democrat or a Republican. I speak as a victim of America's so-called democracy. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who had enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it. And I'm not afraid to say it. If you go to jail, so what? If you're black, you were born in jail. If you're black, you were born in jail. In the North as well as the South. Stop talking about the South. As long as you're south of the Canadian border, you're south.
Yep.
Don't call Governor Wallace a Dixie governor. Romney is a Dixie governor. Too many black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. They see that the whites are so evenly divided that every time they vote, the race is so close, they have to go back and count the votes all over again. And which means that any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it.
Man, such a powerful speech. We see this today, that they got to go back and they got to recount all the votes because it's too close. How many races have we seen that happen, both locally and even on the national level? And even in the presidency candidacy, that they got to go back and they got to recount the votes. Okay? The problem is that when we've been voting, we haven't been voting for a black agenda. Now, what he's trying to tell you is that we are in the position, and we was back then, we are in the position to hold back our vote, to influence in certain parts of this country, even in those local races. And even in the presidential race, okay? Our vote is very important in this country. Despite those numbers that we see about how many groups there are, whatever, we still remain one of the largest groups of voters. We still remain one of the largest groups of voters here in this country that actually get out and go vote. So it's very important that we really watch where we vote. And I'm sorry, I got to drink some water.
You're in a position to determine who goes to the White House and who stays in the White House.
Stop eating while I'm talking.
You're the one who has that power. You can keep Johnson in Washington, D.C., or you can send him back to his Texas cotton patch. You're the one who sent Kennedy to Washington. You're the one who put the present Democratic administration in Washington, D.C. The whites were evenly divided. It was the fact that you threw 80% of your votes behind the Democrats that put the Democrats in the White House. When you see this, you can see that the Negro vote is the key factor. And despite the fact that you are in a position to be the determining factor, what do you get out of it? The Democrats have been...
See that pressure? That's what you called pressure. His speech that he gave, 1964, your vote. Okay? Your vote, you standing up, you changing your ideologies, and you coming together saying, hey, we need this. You start being part of the movement, and we can do a lot. We can change a lot of minds. Because certain things we need, if you're thinking for the whole greater good of the group, I'm not talking about at an individual level. I'm not talking about your Steve Harveys. Okay? I'm talking about collectivism. I'm talking about if you care about your people, then this should be on your mind. We're seeing in 1964 him talking about the Democrats, whatever. Who passed the 1964 Civil Rights Act? I'm talking about within months. We're talking about within 3 months. From April 12th to July 2nd. of the same year, Black people got on code. I'm telling you, and that's how come Johnson was standing up for civil rights, even though he was one of them Dixie Southern Texans. You look at his past. See, it's not about where these people, some of them, come from, because we probably will never change their mind of their views of what they think about black and white. It's about making that conscious mind rethink. Because we are very much deserving of getting our reparations from this country. It's way long overdue. And despite a lot of them people are dead, all the slaves are dead. The last slave died in 1979. That's according to what I heard argued in the courts, in the 7th Court of Appeals, District 7 out of Chicago, that case, and I did a video on that, 2006, Robert Ratliff. They all clearly said it was 1979 was the last slave that was born. Died in 1979. Okay? So, I'm hearing other people say different things. I heard in a video today that Tariq Nasheed says something totally different. I don't know where he got that. I don't know if it was a mistake, but whatever. In any event, changing a mindset is very important here.
In Washington, D.C., only because of the Negro vote. They've been down there 4 years. And then all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and got it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first and they put you last. Because you're a chump.
Such a powerful speech.
In Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, there are 257 who are Democrats. Only 177 are Republicans. In the Senate, there are 67 Democrats. Only 33 are Republicans. The party that you back controls 2/3 of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and still they can't keep their promise to you because you're a chump.
You see that? Remember, this is before the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Cannot emphasize that. Is that there were more Democrats in the House to pass, and that's why it did get passed. Okay? But it didn't bring us. Remember, our wealth, we have a bigger wealth gap ever before. And the time that we were able to work and be treated as a so-called citizen of this country. We're talking about after slavery. That's why this is called the racial wealth gap is greater today than ever before in the history of the United States. Talking about before slavery. Us at the time of earning, when we could earn money.
Anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government, and that party can't keep the promise that it made to you during election time, and you're dumb enough to walk around continuing to identify yourself with that party, you're not only a chump, but you're a traitor to your race. And what kind of alibi did they come up with? They try and pass the buck to the Dixie grass. Now back during the days when you were blind, deaf, and dumb, ignorant, politically immature, naturally you went along with that. But today as your eyes come open and you develop political maturity, you're able to see and think for yourself. And you can see that a Dixocrat is nothing but a Democrat. In disguise. You look at the structure of the government that controls this country. It's controlled by 16 senatorial committees and 20 congressional committees. Of the 16 senatorial committees that run the government, 10 of them are in the hands of Southern segregationists. Of the 20 congressional committees that run the government, 12 of them are in the hands of Southern segregationists. And they're going to tell you and me that the South lost the war. You today are in the hands of a government of segregationists, racists, white supremacists, who belong to the Democratic Party but disguise themselves as Dixiecrats. A Dixiecrat is nothing but a Democrat. Whoever rules the Democrats is also the father of the Dixiecrats, and the father of all of them is sitting in the White House. I say it again. You got a president who's nothing but a Southern segregationist.
He's talking about Johnson. He's talking about Johnson.
From the state of Texas. They'll lynch you in Texas as quick as they'll lynch you in Mississippi.
That's right.
Only in Texas they lynch you with a Texas accent. In Mississippi they lynch you with a Mississippi accent.
That's right.
And the first thing the cracker does when he comes in power, he takes all the Negro leaders and invites them for a coffee. To show that he's all right. And the Uncle Toms can't pass up the coffee. They come away from the coffee table telling you and me that this man is all right. Because he's from the South. And since he's from the South, he can deal with the South. I mean, look at the logic that they use. What about Eastland? He's from the South. Make him the president. If Johnson is a good man because he's from Texas, and he's from Texas, well, if Johnson is a good man because he's from Texas, and he's from Texas, will enable him to deal with the South, Eastland can deal with the South better than Johnson.
It's talking about the politics. Talking about at that time, 1964.
You've been had. You've been took.
This is where that famous slogan comes from. This speech right here. You've been had. You've been took. You've been bamboozled. They added on to it now.
While the senators were filibustering, I noticed in the back of the Senate a huge map. And on this map, it showed the distribution of Negroes in America. And surprisingly, the same senators that were involved in the filibuster were from the states where there were the most Negroes. Why were they filibustering the civil rights legislation? Because the civil rights legislation is supposed to guarantee voting rights to Negroes in those states. And those senators from those states know that if the Negroes in those states can vote, those senators are down the drain. The representatives of those states go down the drain. And in the Constitution of this country, it has a stipulation wherein whenever the voting rights of people in a certain district are violated, then the representative who's from that particular district, according to the Constitution, is supposed to be expelled from the county. Now, if this particular aspect of the Constitution was enforced, why, you wouldn't have a cracker in Washington, D.C.
They didn't like his bluntness. And a lot of people don't want to hear the truth raw for what it is, but that's how he spoke. You have to talk that way.
You're expelling the Democrat. When you destroy the power of the Dixiecrat, you're destroying the power of the Democratic Party. So how in the world can the Democratic Party in the South actually side with you? Insincere. When all this power is based in the South. These Northern Democrats are in cahoots with the Southern Democrats.
And again, why is this important? This is important because we are trying to get reparations. Okay? This is why this speech is important. We are at a time now where we must demand and get the reparations that we deserve as being ADOS. It is time that we get justice in our justice system. You know, it's not just about prison reform. It's about the whole justice system needs to be overhauled. Okay? There are things that are on the Black agenda, that things that we need to get. And that's why this speech is so important. About the politics of this country are no different from the politics of yesterday and what we're seeing here.
Political campaign. You know how it goes. One of them comes to you and makes his foot. And he's in cahoots with the other one that's not foot. Right, because neither one of them is foot. But they got to make you go with one of them or the other. So this is a con game. And this is what they've been doing with you and me all these years. First thing Johnson got off the plane when he became president, he asked, "Where's Dickie?" You know who Dickie is? Dickie, Southern cracker, Richard Russ. Yes. Lyndon B. Johnson's best friend is the one who is the head, who's heading the forces that are filibustering civil rights legislation. You tell me how in the hell is he going to be Johnson's best friend? How can Johnson be his friend and your friend too? No, that man is too tricky.
That's right.
Actually, his friend is still old Dickie.
It's also important to note that more Republicans voted for the Civil Rights Act of 1964 than Democrats. So we always think that the Democrats are on our side. Maybe that's why we're starting to see this transition of more Black people that are going to the Republican side, because they feel that we can get more as Black people working with the Republicans. Maybe there's some truth to that. Because we know that it was the Democrats who wanted slavery, who had slaves, most of them. Okay? Things have not changed in this country as a lot of us want to pretend that they have changed. Even though we're more integrated, doesn't mean that we're better. That is what I'm trying to tell you here. I am trying to tell you that there is nothing wrong with integration, but I'm trying to tell you that we need to be nationalists of our own group as well, where we're talking about Black first in the things and what we do, our ideologies and our thought. Because thinking that way is what's going to make this whole thing happen. If you're kind of wishy-washy, oh no, I don't think, I talk to say, I don't care about getting who's ADOS, who doesn't care about getting their reparations. Keep that to yourself. And my thing is that you should care. You should care about the politics and how policies affect Black people. You should care to the point that you will only vote for a Black agenda. Why give your vote to the Democrats and they want to keep talking this mess like Bernie Sanders? You want to use language that does not have any importance to Black people whatsoever? This whole thing about diversity and people of color, that's how come we got to get away from using those type of words, because it's being confused where we are not reaping the benefits. Now, we are the ones that pushed for the Civil Rights Act, which brought affirmative action, which brought a lot of things that should have been going in our favor. But they did not go in our favor, as we can see, since 1964 until up to 2009. And there's plenty of research. And as I started in the beginning of this, I showed you the wealth gap in the earning of Black people in this country. And I'm not talking about your Oprah Winfrey's. I'm not talking about your Steve Harveys. And I'm not talking about your LeBron James. There's only a few of them per capita. There's only a few of them. And if we were to go look at the wealth and how the white people did get their wealth, it was because of slavery. It was because of slavery. And you cannot deny that it was not because of slavery. The reason why the white people have such much more wealth than black people was because they had a 200-year start. Or even long before that. It's about 200 years that they said that it would take for us to catch up. So that's what's important here, and I do get passionate about this, I said.
Now the Negroes keep the Democrats in power, they're keeping the Democrats in power. This is true. A vote for a Democrat is nothing but a vote for a Democrat. I know you don't like me saying that. I'm not the kind of person who come here to say what you like. I'm going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not.
The truth. And it's the truth.
Up here in the North, you have the same thing. The Democratic Party don't do it. They don't do it that way. They got a thing that they call gerrymandering. They maneuver you out of power. Even though you can vote, they fix it so you go for nobody. They got you going and coming. In the South, they're outright political wolves. In the North, they're political foxes. A fox and a wolf are both canine. Both belong to the dog family. You take your choice. You go to a northern dog or a southern dog. Because either dog you choose, I guarantee you, you'll still be in the doghouse. Everybody are freedom from nobody.
And he's not.
America today finds herself in a unique situation. Historically, revolutions are bloody. Oh yes, they are. They have never had a bloodless revolution. Or a non-violent revolution. That don't happen even in Hollywood. You don't have a revolution in which you love your enemy. And you don't have a revolution in which you are begging the system of exploitation to integrate you into it. Revolutions overturn systems. Revolutions destroy systems. A revolution is bloody. But America is in a unique position. She's the only country in a position actually to become involved in a bloodless revolution. The Russian Revolution was bloody. Chinese Revolution was bloody. French Revolution was bloody. Cuban Revolution was bloody. And there was nothing more bloody than the American Revolution. But today, this country can become involved in a revolution that won't take bloodshed. All she's got to do is give the black man in this country everything he's doing. Everything.
See, you got to remember back at this time, black people had enough. Okay? And Malcolm was talking about, hey, if you don't give it to us, then we're going to go get it. Okay? He's talking about having a revolution. Now, I believe that we can change mindsets without having bloodshed. Because we've seen that happen. So, in terms of, unless we get to that point, like you're seeing in some of these other countries as an anarchy going all over the world right now. Okay? We're seeing people fighting. We're seeing, certain groups fight against other groups. Because there is economic oppression going on all over the world right now. So I just wanted to kind of note that, point that out.
I hope that the white man can see this. Because if you don't see it, you're finished. If you don't see it, you're going to become involved in some action in which you don't have a chance. We don't care anything about your atomic bomb. It's useless. Because other countries have atomic bombs. When 2 or 3 different countries have atomic bombs, nobody can use it. So it means that the white man today is without a weapon. If you want some action, you got to come on down to earth. And there's more black people on earth than there are white people.
That was then, and that is now today. 11 to 1. You can't be afraid. Can't be afraid.
The white man can never win another war on the ground. His days of war victory, his days of background victory, can I prove it? Yes. Take all the action that's going on this earth right now. But he's involved in. Tell me where he's winning. Nowhere. Why, some race eaters, raining out of Korea. Yes, they're raining out of Korea.
Talking about Korea. And we're seeing this in the Middle East happen.
Race eaters with nothing but gym shoes and a rifle and a bowl of rice. Took him and his tanks and his napalm and all that other action he's supposed to have and ran across the yellow. Why? Because the day that he can win on the ground is past. Up in French Indochina, those little peasants, race roars, took on the might of the French army and ran all the Frenchmen. You remember Dan Van Who? The same thing happened in Algeria.
Having some technical difficulties.
They didn't have anything but a right. The French had all these highly mechanized instruments of warfare. But they put some guerrilla action on. And a white man can't fight a guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla action takes heart, takes nerve, and he doesn't have that. He's brave when he's got tanks. He's brave when he's got planes. He's brave when he's got bombs. He's brave when he's got a whole lot of company along with it. But you take that little man from Africa and Asia, turn him loose in the woods with a blade. That's all he needs. All he needs is a blade. And when the sun comes down, and it's dark, it's even season.
If you're watching, I'm probably going to have to go off and come back in. I don't know what's going on.
On the floor of the Congress or the Senate, that's the government. Any kind of dilly down, that's the government. Any kind of pussyfooting, that's the government. Any kind of act that's designed to delay or deprive you and me right now of getting full rights, that's the government that's responsible. And anytime you find the government involved in a conspiracy to violate the citizenship or the civil rights of the people, then you are wasting your time.
Sorry about that, having some technical difficulties.
Instead, you have to take that government.
Everything's kind of off. I don't know what happened.
Of genocide and all the other crimes that is guilty of today.
Unbelievable.
For those of us whose political and economic and social philosophy is black nationalism has become involved in the civil rights struggle. We have injected ourselves into the civil rights struggle, and we intend to expand it from the level of civil rights to the level of human rights. As long as you fight it on the level of civil rights, you're under the same jurisdiction. You're going to his court expecting him to correct the problem. He created the problem.
Yeah.
He's a criminal. You don't take your case to the criminal, you take your criminal to court.
else going.
Began to trample upon the human rights of the people of South Africa that were taken to the UN. When the government of Portugal began to trample upon the rights of our brothers and sisters in Angola, it was taken before the UN. Well, even the white man took the Hungarian question to the UN, and just this week, Chief Justice Goldberg was crying over 3 million Jews in Russia about their human rights.
Remember, Jews got their reparations
because of its
several countries.
Human rights of Jews in Russia. Now you tell me how
still getting money.
Everybody on this earth reached the halls of the United Nations, and you have 22 million Afro-Americans whose churches are being bombed, whose little girls are being murdered, whose leaders are being shut down in broad daylight. Now you tell me why the leaders of this struggle have never taken it before the United Nations.
I'm going to stop and start back up.